Hello again. This is Eric Hall with The Blaze of Glory. Well, you know, Forrest Fenn told us that we're supposed to go back and forth between the thrill of the chase and the map, and back to the book and back to the map. Well, I've only read the book once. Of course, I've studied the map, but here recently I took a notion to go back and look at a few things in the book, and while I was looking for something else, I stopped and studied some of the pictures there in the middle of the book. Forrest Fenn told us something to the effect that the clues are in the poem, but the book helps guide us to the clues or to identify or interpret the clues. And for me, you know, if you remember my synopsis on the thrill of the chase, the things that are important to me in this book as likely clues are the references to the 300 or, 500 minus 200. That are found in this book, the waterfalls that are mentioned in My War for Me. Of course, any of the references to the book around the Yellowstone region I'm partial to. But as I read this book the first time through, I missed things. And that makes sense for Forrest to tell us to keep going back and forth from the poem to the book. What caught my attention this morning was the pictures on page 123 and 124. I know there's been a lot of discussion about the two pictures on page 123, the two on the top right, at some place called Highway Hole. Now, it's possible that this reference to Highway Hole is the name of a location that has simply faded away with time. It's like the story of Osborne Russell in the Journal of a Trapper, where he talked about fleeing from the Blackfeet Indians and going to a place called Stinking Creek. Yet there's only two places that are known today or in recent history to have that name that are in that region, and they're both a long way by horseback from the area of today's Lake Hebgen Dam. In the chapter Flywater, we can see on this picture, just before the page that begins the text, you have the young Forrest Fenn with his dozen fish, and it says up at the top, Madison River. So we know that the bulk of this chapter has to do with the Madison River or the creeks that flow into it, the drainage basin that makes up the Madison River drainage basin. And for me, today, I looked at those two pictures that are labeled as Highway Hole. And I am now certain that I have figured out where those pictures were taken, down to a range of about 100 feet or so. That's how precise I have figured this out. I should say here that just because I figured out where these pictures were taken, or where one of Forrest Fenn's special secret fishing spots was, does not mean the treasure chest has to be at that spot. We know that Forrest has had many special fishing places. I remember when the video came out, we found out that Slough Creek was once a secret and special fishing place. The one thing that bothers me about these pictures is in the top of the pictures, the background is white. And I don't believe that that is an accurate reflection of the background in several of those pictures. It looks to me like one possibility is because this was around 1942, the quality of the cameras could have been so awful that the glare of the sunlight just simply could have kind of blurred out or whited out the background, that says maybe a mile or so in the background might just simply not be recorded in the image of the picture. This afternoon, I even showed these pictures to my 89-year-old grandmother. She's the only person left in my family that's old enough to know anything about what pictures did or didn't capture in the 1940s. And there seemed to be some agreement there that it could be that the quality of the camera of the day could have simply not recorded what was in the background due to the light glare. I noticed in both of the Highway Hole pictures and the one of Mount Haines here on the previous page, it looks like the top of the pine trees are scrawny. It's like they've been attacked by a nuclear bomb. There's nothing left there but like a bare naked twig, and yet the rest of the trees are perfectly healthy. Now, was this the result of the quality of the photographs that existed in 1942, that maybe the light glare just created the illusion of kind of fading out the tops of the trees? Or is it possible that these pictures were actually doctored? Because I don't believe the tops of those pine trees looked stripped naked as opposed to the rest of the trees. Now, what gave me a lump in my throat is these two pictures of the highway hole on page 123 are about a mile from my little bitty search spot that is driving me bananas. And here I see these pictures that I am convinced, based upon the picture, I'm convinced that these are very near my little bitty search area. So now I've got another target to go look at as maybe a secondary search area if I can make this trip this summer. The place where these two photographs of the highway hole are taken is not far to walk from where you could take an automobile, but it's not necessarily easy to get to either once you're on foot. Another thing that bothers me, assuming that highway hole is not just a name that has fallen into obscurity, but maybe it was a name that Forrest conjured up out of thin air. If that's the case, it begs the question, why would he take his family photographs and tell a fib about the name of the place or make up a name of the place? He wouldn't do that unless there's some reason he does not want us to know exactly where that photograph was taken. Remember what the man said. Two people can keep a secret if one of them is dead. Every person in Forrest Fenn's family who would have been on these family trips, anyone who knows where these pictures were taken is dead except Forrest Fenn. Peggy didn't come into the picture until years later. Peggy may never have been told where these pictures were taken. Or maybe she was just told, we took these pictures on our trip to Yellowstone. Or maybe she's keeping a dirty little secret too. On the next page, page 124, we see this picture of a body of water that is just elbow to elbow of fish. The only place I have seen that in recent memory is down there at Sinks Canyon at the place they call the Rise, where the fresh water comes up out of the mountain, and it's so full of fish there that it just looks like a blob in the bottom of that pool of water. But here we're told on page 124 that this is one of Forrest Fenn's secret fishing spots. Now, of course, we know he's had many of these secret and special places. But let us not forget the words, I can keep my secret where, and as I have gone alone in there. I think I have figured out where this picture was taken down to maybe around a mile area. Another interesting part about these 2 or 3 pages is what follows next. The Flywater chapter immediately precedes this image of the treasure chest on page 126. And that Golden Moor chapter is where we learn of the treasure hunt. Forrest Fenn and I probably are going to sound like a broken record for this next search season. He and I both believed that this treasure would be found in the 2018 search season. Now, for my part, I have been amazed at just how much I have discovered this year, my second year on the hunt. The amount of actionable intelligence that I have come up on. I am increasingly certain of the really small area where this treasure is located. I know that sounds pompous, but I am increasingly certain of where it's going to be found. And that, of course, means I'm increasingly certain that it will be found in this next search season in 2019. I can only hope I'm going to be the one who finds it. But I didn't find it this time around. Well, I'm becoming a nervous wreck. So now I've figured out where the highway hole is. I already know how the omegas apply to this situation. I know what the word marvel means. I figured out previously what the unintended clue in Too Far to Walk is. And I've since done research to kind of shore up that and give some corroboration to what I believe to be true. I also know what he means by look quickly down. When you're standing in the right spot, it's unmistakable. I found a couple of triangulation points. I have a way to make every word and phrase in that poem fit except for the 5th stanza, which I think is useless. I'm going to be driving myself crazy trying to keep it together in the run-up to the next search season. Remember to click like, share, subscribe, comment, and donate.